What is going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Jump Ball with Josh. I'm your host, Joshua Mase. I'm very excited to be talking some more NBA today. Today we're going to talk about a potential Giannis trade I mocked up. At the end of the show, we will have Mase's Man of the Week. We're going to get around the league right now and talk about a few talking points. We've got a bit of breaking news, actually, just the Rockets and Mavs game's not long finished. And we've got a bit of breaking news from Shams Charania on ESPN. The Cleveland Cavaliers are trading DeAndre Hunter to the Sacramento Kings for Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. The three-team deal includes Chicago Bulls acquiring Kings forward Dario Saric and 2 future second-round picks. So, in a nutshell, DeAndre Hunter heading to Sacramento for Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder. And I like this move for the Cavs. DeAndre Hunter hasn't really been the Hunter that they bought in on as such. So they get themselves a playmaker off the bench. Darius Garland's been, in and out of the lineup with toe injuries and all the injuries he's been dealing with. So you get a reliable playmaker that can come off the bench and then fill in for Garland when he's out as well. And then you talk about Keon Ellis, a good 3-and-D defender that will fill in the bench. And whilst they haven't got Max Strus there, he's kind of going to fill that gap. And then once Max Strus comes back, you're going to have a good, reliable 3-point shooter to come in. And he's gonna get assignments defensively. He's going to be able to lock some people down. And yeah, I think this is a good move from the Cavs to try and get themselves out of the rut that they've been in. I do believe that they are aggressively shopping Lonzo Ball as well, so see what moves can be made there also. Lonzo Ball was another guy that they thought would take a flyer on and probably hasn't panned out. He just can't move. He's only shooting threes and he's not really shooting them well. He's still doing his bits defensively and playmaking, but he's not the same Lonzo we know. So I like this move, and then I feel like the Kings are probably going to flick DeAndre Hunter off to a contender for a pick or something. That's to remain to be seen. We'll see what happens in the coming days, but a bit of excitement after a really, really lackluster trade period so far. We had the Trae Young trade, but that feels like an age ago now. So yeah, we're about 5 days away from the end of the trade period. So definitely expect it to start heating up, especially around the Giannis trade that we're going to talk a bit later on about. In other news, Nikola Jokic returned yesterday to verse the Clippers. He put up 31 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 72% from the field. He's still eligible now for postseason awards. And, it's a bit of a weird one. You kind of thought, when you saw him go down, we thought, he's not going to be eligible for MVP and all that kind of stuff. And now, I think he comes back, and aside from Shea, I feel like he's back there and he's second in the MVP. And the team has done very well without him, but they still are Jokic's team, and they still do a lot based on how Jokic plays. So getting him back is going to be huge, and I think he fits right into that top 3 MVP chatter right now. Big matchup for them tomorrow against the reigning champions OKC, and they've kind of been in a rut lately, just really all over the place, and this will be a good matchup, I think, and a good chance to see where Jokic is at. He was wearing that, I think it's a leg sleeve or a compression sleeve or something along those lines on his leg, so yeah, he didn't play a heap of minutes, but I think they're going to warm him back and he'll be back looking he was looking his good self there, but his proper self. Moving on to another piece of big breaking news, and Paul George has been suspended for 25 games for violating NBA's anti-drug policy. And Paul George put this out to sources at ESPN. Over the past few weeks, I've discussed the importance of mental health, and in the course of recently seeking treatment for an issue of my own, I made the mistake of taking the improper medication. And I remember back in the bubble when he was with the Clippers, he missed a few games. I can't remember if it was more than one, but there was a game there for sure where he missed with mental health. And so just hoping for Paul George that he gets his head right. 25 game suspension can't be good for anybody with mental health issues, so yeah, really hoping that he can get back to himself. And he was just starting to heat up, and the other day he had 9 threes, I think it was, and yeah, he just was kind of looking himself that overtime game against Houston, and he was just like a two-way player, doing it on the defensive end and then scoring as well. So yeah, just hopeful for him. Hopefully nothing else comes of this. I do believe that Philadelphia have been given about a $6 million compensation. So once Paul George has served 5 of those games in suspension, they can sign a 15th player with that $6 million. So that really helps them a lot. They could get someone, potentially if someone goes to the buyout market or something along those lines. They've got room there now. So, but yeah, all the best for Paul George. Hopefully he gets his head right and gets back in the game. And the last little piece of news is Victor Wembanyama's streak of blocking a shot and at least one shot a game for 101 straight games ended today against the Charlotte Hornets. They lost that game 121-116. That's the third longest streak in NBA history. So, yeah, obviously Wemby is that alien on the defensive end that we know him to be, and for him not to get a block is quite surprising. Normally he's collecting 3 or 4 of them. So yeah, just a little bit of breaking news around the league. What the bulk of the show was going to be around today is I did a short earlier in the week about a trade that I kind of drew up myself, and over the last few days there's been reports, and it's become quite clear now that Giannis and Milwaukee will part ways, whether it's before the trade deadline or in the off season. Still remains to be unknown, and I think it's in Milwaukee's best interest to get off Giannis now and just have the breakup, move out and move on. I think the longer this drags on, the more control Giannis is going to have. If it gets to the off season and he decides he just doesn't want to resign with anyone bar 2 teams, then the Bucks might be forced to almost take a deal that they don't want to take. So I think, if they can find a deal that they semi-like, obviously they're still going to get a bit of a haul for Giannis, and he doesn't lose his value, but the longer this goes on, I think teams will be able to kind of shoot lower than previous times. So yeah, I think I would love to see something happen over the next few days before the deadline, and that's why I mocked this trade. And it's a 3-way trade. So the Bucks would send Bobby Portis and Giannis to the Knicks. So the Knicks are picking up Giannis and Bobby Portis, and we'll talk about that from the Knicks' perspective first. Their outgoings would be Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges, so we'll talk about it from that perspective. They get Giannis, which is, Giannis has never played in a big market team. He's been in a small market team all of his career, so he gets to the bright lights of New York. And as a Miami Heat fan, I want him to come to Miami, but I think this is what's best for the league. So he heads to New York, plays alongside Jalen Brunson, OG. You got Mitchell Robinson in the front court, Josh Hart. So he gets there, he can carry a lot of the offense. He can do his do his stuff on the defensive end alongside Robinson and OG. And then New York get a dog in Bobby Portis, a guy that's going to get, they lack a bit of a dog, maybe beyond Josh Hart. They lack a guy that's just going to get physical. He's going to get in there and he's going to be tough. And I think Bobby Portis could be the guy that could really step in, championship pedigree. He's won a championship with the Bucks. Same with Giannis. He can come off the bench and shoot the ball. He's going to be a good backup, to Mitchell Robinson, and can kind of play a little bit of 5 minutes if you need him to for a small ball lineup. So I think that avenue for them to go would be the way they get a menacing dog-like bench player to fill in a void. And then you look at what their lineup looks like, and then you talk about JB, OG, Giannis, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, and then off the bench you've got guys like Deuce McBride, you've got Bobby Portis, filling in and doing a job. So yeah, that's from New York's point. The other team involved in this trade would be the Golden State Warriors. So they would receive Karl Anthony Towns. They would also receive Kyle Kuzma from the Bucks, and they would be giving up Jimmy Butler, Trace Jackson-Davis, and Jonathan Kuminga. And for the Warriors, I think you get two players that you can put around Steph. You're going to get an offensive force in Karl Anthony Towns, who looks better alongside a defensive anchoring centre or front court partner in Draymond. And then you take a flyer on Kuzma and see if a change of scenery does it for him. It's going to be better than sitting on Jimmy Butler's contract while he's injured. Who knows how Jimmy Butler comes back. And I like this. You capitalise on Steph's last few years. You go all in around him with Cat. And Kuzma is a guy that you just take on and you take a flyer, and, hopefully it works out. Steve Kerr might be able to get the best of him and just can score, and Cat can score, set some good screens for Curry off the ball, and I think this could work out really well. And then you talk about what the Bucks get. So they're obviously going to get Jimmy Butler, Trace Jackson-Davis. They're going to get Jonathan Kuminga, and they're going to also get Mikal Bridges. So also attached to this would be 2 or 3 first-round picks from the Warriors and 1 from the New York Knicks. So they get some draft capital here. And then the Bucks can go a few ways here. They can either use that draft capital and go into the tank and rebuild, or they can flick that draft capital, have a gap year this year, and then build around a team with Jimmy, Mikal, Miles Turner. They can have another year of Ryan Rollins developed. They can go and get another guard or a 4 that could potentially be round out a championship squad. They could trade Kuminga off and or they could flick Miles Turner and some picks and free up some cap. And there's probably better returns around the league for Giannis, but I think this is one where right now you get a bit of a return. You're in a gap year, so Jimmy being out for the rest of the season doesn't really matter. If you want to trade him earlier into next season, if a team's willing to take him on, then yeah, you've got a number of different ways you can play it. You can set your team up to rebuild around Kuminga. You can flick Mikal Bridges to a contender for a youngster, to build around also. Or you can go the opposite way and flick Kuminga and have a run next season. So a couple of little things there, and that's just a trade that I really think would benefit a lot of teams and would benefit the league right now. Moving on to the last little bit of today's episode, and it's Mase's Man of the Week. My man of the week is always going to be a guy that impacts winning. We had Russell Westbrook the other week who impacted winning when they went 3 or 4-0. Rudy Gobert was another one, and this team's gone 6 straight wins. They've turned around. They're pushing the play-in, and they've really just taken a different direction. And the man of the week this week is Brandon Miller from the Charlotte Hornets, averaging 26 points over the 4 games this week, 5 rebounds, and a box score plus minus of 24. And that's a huge plus minus. 24 is, that's for a guy that plays that many minutes. That's a good plus minus. They've beaten teams like the Spurs today. They knocked off the 76ers, just to name a few. And yeah, Brandon Miller is a guy that's been affected by injury over his career, but he's coming and he's starting to fruition into a great player. And the Charlotte Hornets team has a good core around them now, and they're starting to push in the right directions. My boy I like to watch on Teed Up and Numbers on the Board, Pee Wee the Plug Andreessen, been around that environment and talks very highly of the Hornets, and yeah, good to see them turning around, and I like to hear his perspective on it and all the people in there. So shout out to the Hornets, good on them. They've done what they needed to do, and shout out to Brandon Miller. I think they'll push in. They'll be a playing team, and I'm talking as a Miami Heat fan right now. I'd be scared to face them in the play-in. I think they would do a job on us. So yeah, shout out to you. You are officially the 5th Mase Man of the week. If you like this episode, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any further content. I do this every week, plus shorts and other smaller videos. I'm active over on Twitter, so make sure you go follow me there. Just chuck a comment. It's a free way to support what I'm doing. I like interacting with people. I'm always here to talk. An open community where we can talk about whatever basketball or anything outside of basketball. But until next time, I hope you have a good week, and cheers.